Welcome. Thank you all for coming. And we are in St. Petersburg. And we are inside. We're in the air conditioning. We have soft seats. If it were to rain and the bay would come up, we'd be safe, we'd be dry. If the wind started up and trees fell down, we would be safe inside. As people in our culture, we spend a lot of time inside. In Florida, however, more than most of the United States, we go outside a lot. We walk, we jog, we run, we paddle, we canoe, we kayak, we bicycle ride, we surf, we skateboard, we picnic, and we just generally goof off outside. Today, we are going to celebrate the outside, and we are going to celebrate it and see how the outside helps to shape St. Petersburg and helps to shape the identity of St. Petersburg and the surrounding areas. And to do that, we have a special guest who celebrates the outside. He makes his living by writing about the outside, and from what I can tell, he gets his joy from being outside. So let's welcome Terry Tomalin, outdoor writer for the Tampa Bay Times, and a
Thank you.
Outdoor adventurer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So
It's time to play with these?
well, I'm going to bring up this because this says it all. So the first thing I always ask my guest is, how did you get to St. Pete?
Well, I moved to Florida because I wanted to scuba dive and enjoy the surf and the sun, and ended up at the University of South Florida, where I had as much fun as possible. And
how old were you when you did that?
I first came to Florida when I was 19. I had a pickup truck full of all my gear, and I probably lived for a couple of years without having an actual bed. I got a job down here working for a small Florida newspaper, and then worked for a slightly bigger newspaper, and then ended up at the St. Petersburg Times. And I lived in North County for a while, and then I got married, and my wife insisted that we move
And your
to
wife is here?
My wife is here, and
Yes.
she's a St. Pete girl, 5th generation.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "There's no way we're living in North County. You got to move back to the Burg." So at first I was hesitant because my spiritual center for years was the lifeguard shack on Clearwater Beach.
Oh.
And
were you a lifeguard?
yes, in fact, my best man at my wedding, Joe Lane. Joe, are you here? Somewhere? He just came for the free drink, so there he is. I spent many years on the beach up there while I was working for the Times. And it was a big thing to move from someplace like Clearwater Beach down here, but I'm glad I did.
Well, you may not have had much choice.
No, I had no choice whatsoever.
So one of the things, well, first let me ask you this. You do all of these adventures, and we'll see that he does extreme adventures. And he doesn't do them alone. He does them with other people. And some of people are here who do these adventures. So it couldn't have just sprung out of nothing. So when you were young, growing up in New Jersey, did you do outdoor things?
Well, I'm number 8 out of 9 kids, and my dad would take us on vacations. The way we, would spend our summers was camping for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time.
Where would you go?
Well, we would go to Maine, and
I see.
we'd go to all different places, and he would.
Did you have a bus?
No, we had like a. Just like the Partridge Family, we had a band too. No, we'd have like 2 cars, and there'd be a canoe on top of one car and a boat on top of the other. And
so your dad drove one, and
yeah, my mom drove one, and then there'd be a trailer behind one of them, and another trailer behind the other one with another boat on it. So we'd have several boats and canoes, and 7, 8 kids or whatever. And then we would go to a state park someplace and get like 3 campsites and set up this compound. And my dad would sit back and listen to the radio and drink martinis all day, and the kids would run wild. And
well, he was like an executive in New York.
Right, he was an advertising executive, so he had a very stressful job. So I guess he would just get it pent up, for months at a time, and then just blow it all off during the summer, So.
And you were allowed to run free, and
it was crazy. They were just like no parental supervision whatsoever.
This is not the model.
Yeah. I have this discussion with my wife all the time because we have small children, and my son, who I wanted to name Tarzan, but she vetoed that, is prone to like stripping down to his, his shorts and running around the woods and for hours at a time and coming back covered with mud, and she often wonders if that's healthy for him because he's lives the life of a savage.
And how old is he?
He's 11, but I finally, like I told my son this, and I explained this to my wife when I was small. I used to strip off all my clothes. We lived in this part of New Jersey where there was a huge park behind us.
You lived in Edison.
Edison. We had an 80-acre Green Acres park behind us, and I would strip off my clothes and I would run through the woods in my tighty whities and pretend I was like a Tarzan or whatever, and I would forget. I'd lose my clothes, and I'd come back, and it'd be like November or something cold, and I'd come back to the house, and my mom would go, "Where's your clothes?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't know," and I'd go through sets of clothes like this, and I can remember, it being quite a problem. And on a recent camping trip, my son showed up. I don't know if I told you this story, honey. But on a recent camping trip, my son came back, and he had, he's covered in mud. He had no shoes on. It was cold, and he had this stick in his hand that he said was a spear, and he had been hunting wild boar. And I said, "Where are your shoes?" And he looked down, and he goes, "Oh." He realized that he was barefoot. And I was like, "Oh, you're running around for 2 hours in the woods barefoot. That's cool. You don't realize that you're barefoot." So I sent him back into the woods, and about an hour later, he returned with a pair of muddy shoes.
So were you unique in your family for this behavior, or was it generally the other 8 participated as well?
Well, I think that most of my siblings had some type of, exhibited some type of deviant behavior that wasn't necessarily like outdoorsy. I just happened to gravitate towards the outdoors.
Well, we're glad you did.
Yes. Well, thank you. It's worked out for me.
Yeah. So one thing you've mentioned both about yourself and about your son is the importance, and I think it is an importance of young people to be outdoors. Maybe not to such an extreme, but to be outdoors. And you take your children with you on adventures.
Right. I have a friend, Randy Wayne White, who's an author down in Sanibel, writes a lot of different books. And, he said once that when you have a child, they don't know whether you're a IBM executive or a goat-herding nomad. You have the same chance to mold them any way you want. So from the time my kids were my rule was they had to be out of Pampers and into at least pull-ups, So they had some degree of control over their bodily functions.
Right.
And I'd take them everywhere that I would go. I mean, I had my little boy when he was 4 years old surfing, before, when we'd have those hurricanes come up the coast, I would put a life jacket on him and get a leash and tie it to my arm and, take him out. So they've been, they've grown up outdoors. My little boy and my little girl are both, avid outdoors people.
Well, I have to say that I grew up in New Jersey as well, and we spent lots of times at the Jersey Shore. And from being very young, my parents took me out into the waves, and I learned to dive and swim. And I have, I have no fear. And it's because of that childhood experience. So it's really invaluable. So
I think so. I think it's
you're
great.
a good model.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Tell my wife.
So one of the things that's interesting about you in terms of your job at the Tampa Bay Times is that, Terry writes for the sports section. And one of the things that's different about you is that the other sports writers...
Don't talk to me.
Well,
They told you that?
I wasn't going to say anything. But the other sports writers write about teams or write about other people, right? Like Gary Shelton writes about the Rays or the Bucks or this. But you write about yourself. You write about your own adventures. Now, is that happen in other papers as well? I mean, it really is a difference. Your role's very different than the other people.
Well, honestly, I just try to have as much fun as possible and get paid for it, and it just sort of works out that way. I think it's stuff that I think is cool to do, and I call up my buddies and I say, hey,
Yes,
have you ever,
Yeah.
done this, and why not? Let's do it. And we just come up with these ideas, and we just go do them. And I think that you can really tell there's a difference between somebody who writes about other people doing things and
Yes.
somebody who's out there writing about being, out in the middle of nowhere, eaten by bugs, you're getting rained on, and it's, you don't know whether you're going to make it or not. And, I mean, it brings it alive to people. So I think that's the way to do it,
And when you do these stories, do you have to get permission from your editor? I mean, do they worry about whether you'll come? Because some of these expeditions, are indeed life-threatening.
Well, I always think it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
I see.
That way, when I come back and I tell them about it, they're used to just, oh, that's great, let's see. And then they read the story, and my boss pulls me, Jesus Christ, what were you doing,
So, more importantly than your editor, do you have to get permission from your wife?
Well, it really...
No, I'm serious.
What it involves, it's the time element. So, for example, let's say we're going to go do a trip, like paddle the Apalachicola, the entire river. What I'll do is I'll go to bed, at 10 o'clock, kiss the kids goodnight, and then I'll get up at like 12:30, and that counts as being at home for that night. So we'll drive all night or whatever, and we'll get...
Remember the thing your wife said to you
Which
when
thing?
she left? Just in the other room, she said, tell the truth.
I always tell the truth,
Yeah.
But anyhow, so we will we'll start in the early morning, and we'll go do something, and we'll spend 16-hour days. We really just don't we don't sleep or whatever, and come back, and then I write the story, and then she really doesn't read the sports section, so half the time she doesn't see my stories anyhow. But then somebody at work will say, "Oh my God, did you read?" And she'll act like she read it, and then she'll call me on the phone and say, "What's this?"
Well, if you've read the stories, and if you haven't, they're really worth reading. What they do, it is
to
quite
tell the truth,
something.
can I add something? Honestly,
Of course.
is that everything I do is well thought out, and it's well measured, and I surround myself with like super competent buddies.
Right.
I've got a crew of guys that I travel with that I would trust my life with, and I do repeatedly.
And you do have safe boat. That
we have
goes
everything's in there. We're super safe, and I have I have this core group of friends who everybody has each other's back. So it seems dramatic, and to most people it is, but we operate at sort of an elevated level.
And who's here? I know George Stovall's here, and he's one of these people. Who else?
Dali Jackson.
Okay. Is there anyone else?
My
who
friend
goes
Casey. Is Casey still here? He might have just come for the drinks too. Of course, my buddy Joe Lane, and these are guys that I've done lots of different adventures with, and and that's the key is if you want to do any type of a outdoor adventure, it's best to go with a group of people. I've done things by myself before. I once paddled from through the Everglades by myself, which was a big mistake. But
and you do train.
yes, and I train. I mean, we swim, and I just had knee surgery, so I'm not training as much as I should. But everybody tries to stay in shape, and there's a lot of safety equipment, and it's well thought out, and it's.
So we're going to look at some maps.
I get to use the pointer.
Yeah, you
now.
can use your pointer.
Been waiting all night for this.
Okay, so do you want to talk about where Florida is in all of this and what's around it?
This is Florida. Bahamas, Cuba. We've literally, my crew and I have literally paddled from the Okefenokee Swamp all the way down here to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And, there's countless rivers, and,
Here, let's.
You can go to the river map next.
There we go.
So we've done the Swanee up here. That's the Apalachicola right there. We've done the Swanee. We've done the St. John's. We've paddled the Withlacoochee all the way to the Gulf. We've done the Hillsborough. We've done the Peace. We did the Indian River Lagoon. We've done this trip here, all the way down here, all the way to there, and then we went across the Bahamas. I mean, we've really paddled all over this state, and our goal is to kind of connect all the lines someday. So, Florida's a big state. It's like it's a big playground. There's
so much water.
I'm just turned 51, and I figure I got at least another 50 years of doing this kind of
absolutely
stuff.
Okay, so here's a Google Earth map of Pinellas and Hillsborough. So could you take us around?
The island of Pinellas.
Yes, the island of Pinellas.
I guess most of you didn't realize this, but Pinellas County is actually an island, or at least that was my theory. But we once paddled. We started at the bypass canal up here. We actually spent like several hours sleeping in the back of a pickup truck outside of a Albertsons supermarket, and then got up at about midnight, and we paddled up this canal, across Lake Tarpon, got up to a road over here that we didn't really think about, and had to carry the kayaks across.
Well, let's do that in the next map.
Oh, okay.
Because it has all the, it's easier to see.
Okay.
Could you point out what are the major, waterways that are around us?
Well, we have the Hillsborough River that comes down here. You've got the Little Manatee. I guess that's the Manatee, the Braden River, the Alfaya. It's kind of hard to see on this.
The what?
The Alfaya River.
Where's that?
I can't tell on this map because it looks like camouflage.
It does look like camouflage.
And I've only had 2 drinks. And then, of course, there's Tampa Bay, and we do a swim every year across Tampa Bay, which I guess is right about here. Is that where the Gandy Bridge is? I don't know. And
but you do it in the winter.
Yes, there's no sharks in the winter, and or just ones that won't bother you.
And no warm water.
In cold water.
Yes, exactly.
So.
Okay, so now we're at a map. It does have trails in it. So could you take us around and talk to us about this trip you took where you went around
so back to the island of
Pinellas?
Pinellas. So if you notice, there's a bypass canal here, so you can go up like that, and then you end up in some kind of weird lake that you're really not supposed to be in. It's private property, and you have to climb over into the Anclote River, which can be very confusing at night. And then we came out here, and we paddled all the way down the coast like this, all the way down like this through the intercoastal waterway, and got down here, and we were kind of delirious and hyperthermic at this point. And we went to Tampa Bay Watch and slept underneath the building out there, and then got up the next morning and paddled underneath the Skyway, and paddled all the way up like this again. I'm quite sure that this doesn't look like this. There's not a straight cut. This map must be messed up somehow. And then we ended up
they're dividing it from Hillsborough.
I got you. Okay. And then we went back up here, and we ran into some kind of roadblock, and got out and ran up to the car where it was parked, and then went to a pub and drank lots of beer, and actually circumnavigated Pinellas County in, I think, 36 hours. The island of Pinellas.
So when you were doing that, what did you discover about Pinellas? And
that
what
it was,
did you?
It's
what
not
are
an
the
island.
highlights?
Was the first one.
Well, yes. We all, the rest of us knew that.
No, I discovered that the Pinellas County just has the most amazing waterways. I mean, there's pretty much everything that you could possibly want. The intercoastal, I can remember coming down early in the morning, and there's all these little barrier islands. It was just beautiful. It was plate glass calm, and we were the only people out there. And then late at night, you're out paddling through here, and it's windy and it's scary. And the next day, it's calm again, and you can go. It's got every type of possible, condition that you could think of. So, paddling underneath the Sunshine Skyway Bridge is just, it's awesome. It's an amazing thing. So,
But aren't there strong currents under the Skyway Bridge?
There's strong currents everywhere, and you got to just paddle against. It's easier to paddle with the current, for sure. Yeah. And whenever possible, we should do that. But it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
So when you find the tide against you, you just got to keep going. And what we do is when we've had a lot of trips where stuff has gone bad, it's gone horribly wrong, and what we do is we sing. We'll sing Christmas carols or Queen songs or talk like we're from France. Different things to
distract you.
But in English.
Yeah.
Just with the French accent.
So did anything go horribly wrong on this trip?
On this trip, sure, there's lots of things that went horribly wrong. God, there's so many things. I mean, it's, most of them I can't repeat in a mixed audience. But, the one common problem we have is, we usually travel with two sets of clothes. Our wet clothes that we wear during the day, and then we have dry clothes that we put on at night. But what happens is your clothes get wet during the day, and sometimes it drops below freezing. So when you get up in the morning, your clothes are frozen, and it's not life-threatening, but it's very uncomfortable putting on a pair of frozen shorts, especially for a man.
Well, when did you, what month did you do this?
This was, I think, in February we did this.
Oh. That explains it.
Yes. I know. Who would think,
Right.
Gosh,
So,
you should do it in better weather.
So if one were just starting out, one didn't want to do it in 36 hours or something like that.
Well, I would not recommend doing this at all. In fact,
I see.
I would recommend not doing 90% of what I do, and that's why I wrote the book, is because there's a lot of just simple, ordinary things you can do that aren't going to get you in trouble.
So what are nice, ordinary things you can do
around here?
Yeah.
Oh, you could paddle at Weeden Island.
And what is Weeden Island?
Weeden Island is this natural park area in
Can you point
North
with your...
St. Petersburg. I'm trying to think. What's that right there? No, that's Howard Franklin, so it's down here. Okay, I got Casey here somewhere. I can hear his voice. Right. In this area, there's a network of canoe trails, but Coffee Pot Bayou is a great place to...
Can you explain what Weeden Island is?
Weeden Island, it's named after the culture of Indians that lived there. And I'm not an archaeologist, but I know a little bit about it. And they were, it's a type of pottery that was found there. And the Weeden Island culture. So it's been changed hands many times. It's been a state park. It's been a county park. And but it's basically a mangrove area that's got lots of little waterways and great snook fishing, and it's just a wonderful place. It's a playground. So, but if you go around this whole Pinellas, South St. Pete and Tierra Verde, this is a great playground down here. Pretty much doesn't matter where you live in St. Petersburg, you have access to wonderful water. I live down here on Pinellas Point, which has some of the best fishing in the entire county. So, wherever you live, you have access to great water.
And when you go fishing, you don't do the paddling and fishing at the same time. You do them separately?
You try to stop, put your paddle down, and then fish.
But you do fish from your
you
boat?
can fish from a kayak, and you can actually fish from paddle boards. Paddle boards, that's the hottest growing outdoor water sport, and Bill Jackson's has this great paddle board that's built for fishing. It's got a little cooler on it and place to hold your rods, and you can paddle and fish off of it. It's unbelievable. It's just incredible.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not lying.
How
Go
big
see
are
it.
they?
It's like 12 feet long, you know. In fact, I want one for Father's Day. They're so popular that they're having a hard time keeping them in stock. But you can paddle, you can, fish out of a kayak. But you don't need a boat to fish in Pinellas County. You can get out and wade and catch all the fish you want. I mean, there's no better place in Florida to live. And I love Florida, but Pinellas County, and particularly St. Petersburg, and particularly the south side of St. Petersburg, is where it's at.
Now, why would you say that? I mean, what is it about Pinellas, let's look at Pinellas, that makes it especially attractive and have unique elements to it?
First of all, I don't know if you knew this, but Pinellas County is an island. No, it's got great water. No matter where you go, there's great water.
What does that mean, great water?
Well, you can go out here and look at these beaches. You can go out there and swim. I bet you could swim from Joe Lane. You could swim from Tarpon Springs up here all the way down the coast. And just every time we wanted to stop, we'd swim like 20 miles a day. We'd just pull in one of the mom and pop hotels, get something to eat, spend the night. Next day we'd get up and swim down the coast. And I bet you we could swim from Tarpon Springs all the way down to like Fort DeSoto.
So are you making that?
I'm just kind of throwing it out there, see if he bites.
Okay, who in the audience would like to participate in this? George, your hand going up?
We could have a swim Pinellas County festival. We could do it, get a whole group of people and start.
It's actually a really wonderful idea.
I think I'm going to work on that. But don't tell my boss though.
Is she the boss?
Of course, yeah. No, she'll come visit us at night when we're staying at the hotels. So. But I think that there's just so much to do here, and the water is so beautiful. You have beach water, okay? You have a great intercoastal to travel on a boat. You've got surfing beaches, paddling beaches, and then, as if that's not enough, like on the East Coast, they just have one ocean. We've got an ocean and a bay, which is really cool. And if you really want to look at it in a macro sense, Florida's got not only one ocean, we got two oceans. And then we've got the Florida Keys and we've got the Everglades. Why go anyplace else in the world? In fact, we could cut it off just at Georgia and float off on our own, and we'd be fine,
But Pinellas is an island, so it can float off on its own anyway. So we've talked about paddling a lot, because that's, visually, and we're going to look at images of this. But in terms of fishing, what makes Pinellas a good fishing place, and you said the pink
I'm not going to tell you my secret spots.
That's okay. I won't tell you mine either.
All right, okay. So the reason why Pinellas County is such a great place to fish, and there's probably not a better place to fish in Florida, is because, you have all this... you have places like Honeymoon Island and Caladesi Island that have great, they're islands, so the back side of them, the leeward side, has all this great habitat for redfish, trout, and snook. And then you have out on the beaches, you have, different species that run along the beaches, be it king mackerel, and you head out a little farther and you got amberjack and groupers, so you got the deep sea species. So then you go all the way down here, and this whole area is all nothing but grass flats and shallow grass flats, more great fishing. And then you come up, and you got the whole bay.
Right.
You can play in the whole bay. It's just, God, I just get so excited just looking at it. It's just wonderful. Weeden Island's a great place to fish, and most places don't have such diverse habitat and such great access. It doesn't take you long to get to the water. It's not like you got to pack up your truck in Polk County and drive an hour to get to the salt water.
So in order for fish to thrive, one has to have lots of food for the fish. So what provides such good food?
The grass beds, the mangroves, the salt marshes, all the habitat. And, we could have done a better job preserving that, but there's organizations like Tampa Bay Watch that do a great job of reestablishing habitat. They're doing oyster domes and oyster bars, and they're planting seagrasses, and they're planting salt marshes. But the more habitat we have, the better off our fishing will be.
And what about how clean our water is?
Our water is real clean. In fact, that's how we started to swim across the bay back in the, the early 90s. Peter Clark from Baywatch approached me and wanted to do something to publicize the bay, and I called my buddy Joe Lane, and we swam across the bay in November on my birthday back for the first time, and they developed a race after that. So they had the race many years because the water quality was so good that you could swim across the bay, and then we just resurrected it 3 years ago, and now we do it in January to benefit the Navy SEAL Foundation. It's the water's clean and clean enough to swim. You can't drink it because it's salt water. But
Thank you. But how do you account? I mean, not all water's clean, Gulf water or ocean water. How do you account for that we keep it so clean here, even though there is industry and...
Well, part of it is, really, you got to credit the Clean Water Act, I guess, of 1972, which, made sure that municipalities didn't dump raw sewage in the bay and in the ocean. But, the biggest thing that you can do is just reduce the amount of nitrogen and phosphates that are going into the bay or the Gulf with lawn fertilizer, and make sure that the stuff that you're putting down your drain is good.
Because we have issues of red tide.
Well, red tide's natural, and we've always had red tide. So there's nothing you can do about that. But the water quality has just steadily improved over the years, and the more habitat you have, the better the water quality.
So one of the things that from this discussion, and that's why I've kept the map up for so long, is, the whole premise of this series is about what shapes the identity of our town, of St. Petersburg. And you've made a wonderful case of how the water and the waterways shape that identity and shape the way we think about living here, shape what we do during our day, but also how we think of ourselves. Like we think we live on an island.
And looks like an island to me. I can't see how if you live in Pinellas County, you live in St. Petersburg, you live in Clearwater, that you cannot not be at least in or on the water every day. Everybody should make a pilgrimage to the water every day. They should paddle, they should surf, they should swim in the ocean, they should fish, and if they do that, then they're going to protect it. They're going to make sure that the governor doesn't, hire some knucklehead to do something that's going to damage it, or the mayor, or whatever elected official. The people who use it are going to take care of it.
And that, I think, is really brilliant, what you just said.
Kidding, really?
Yes. I give you brilliant. Because when we're involved, we take care of things. It's like when you know people, you take care of them. And so if you become engaged with the water and the outdoors, you care about it. You want it clean. You want to pick up the trash. You want to make sure the water's clean.
And you want to teach your kids that.
Exactly.
You want to make sure that they stop and pick up a garbage bag, or they pick up that bottle, So.
Okay, so let's look at some pictures.
Yay.
Okay, now this is a remarkable trip. So can you tell us about the background of this, and tell us where you're going first?
Well,
maybe I'll go back to the map. Here.
Well, I spent some time down under in New Zealand, and I hung out with these Maori guys. They're the native New Zealanders, and paddled some canoes with them. And when I got back, and the Polynesians would travel across vast expanses of open ocean. They didn't care. They just took off. And so when I got back to the States, I was doing a story, and I contacted some researchers at the University of Florida, and I said, what were the native Floridians doing in terms of canoes? And did they travel inter-island travel? And they said no, there was no travel because of the Gulf Stream, and there had actually been numerous.
Can you point out where the Gulf Stream is?
Gulf Stream this is the current goes like this. It comes up and loops around like that, comes down, and then goes up like that, and then over to England. Okay, so the Gulf Stream was a natural barrier because it can run 3-5 knots. So there's a lot of academic papers written about why the native Floridians didn't have commerce with the Bahamas. They thought they couldn't make it across the Gulf Stream.
And the native Floridians are way before Columbus comes.
Yeah. They're all a bunch of, Calusas and Tequestas and, Appalachia, a lot of different Indian tribes. But primarily, I guess you'd be in this part of Florida down here, the Calusas. So I got interested in that, and I was told that it couldn't be done. And I had sailed across to Cuba, so I had crossed it in a sailboat, and I figured that, if you could do it in a sailboat, you could probably do it in a canoe. So. And
you're probably someone, if someone says it couldn't be done, you probably don't particularly like that.
Well, unless it's my wife who says it can't be done.
Right.
So I got my friend George Stovall, Dr. Stovall, and we sat down and we started talking about this and got a group of people together and got an outrigger canoe and planned it to where we would leave on I wrote a series of stories, one Sunday, and we'd paddle, and I wrote another story, and we made it across, and I think...
And could you point out the route?
Well, it's hard to see because this is such a big map, but we started down here in Key Largo, and we paddled across to Bimini, which is probably right about there. But it's 50 miles from Miami. I think we paddled more like 65.
But is that where you started?
We started... These are the keys right here.
Right.
Okay? We started in Key Largo at some private, fancy golf club.
So you drove there with the outrigger?
Yeah, we drove down there towed the outrigger down, and then we paddled out like that, and then on the way back we put it on a boat and came back so we could get back in time. And we made it in roughly 9 hours. So.
Now, is that a normal time to make it in? Or
well, we don't know because nobody ever did it before.
Okay.
Or if they did, they were, just hundreds of years ago, and nobody kept records. This is some of our training shots. We would put 6 people in the boat at a time, and then we would swap out. And you can see as you go on, there's some in-water changes.
Can you say who these people are?
Actually, no, because I can't remember half these guys' names, But George was there. Birch? The crazy guy in the black shirt.
Where? That's Terry in the visor life?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He wouldn't buy into the program. I said everybody wear white shirts for the photos, and he had to wear a black shirt, so we blocked his name out.
Who is? Which one? Huh. Okay, so why outriggers?
Because they don't really tip over. Well, that's not true.
Yeah, but
right,
they
George?
did,
you know
didn't
that,
they?
Right? It did tip over.
Yeah.
But
I think
it's
we
more
have
stable.
A picture of
yeah,
it.
it's more stable in the open ocean. You can see the outriggers sticking out either side. So there's a big debate about whether the native Floridians used outriggers, but I'm of the school of thought that they were just, they just lived a long time ago. They weren't idiots, so
right,
they would have
of
figured
course,
that out
yeah.
pretty quick.
Right.
So okay.
That is an assumption we make that people who lived a long time ago aren't as smart as us. But if you know history,
they're plenty smart.
Sometimes
yeah.
way smarter than us. So,
yeah.
Okay, so you practiced, and why did you practice, and for how long?
We took it out one day. We paddled out to the Bell Buoy out at Egmont, 20 miles out to the end of the shipping channel. I think there might be a picture.
That was it? That was practice?
We've had a couple of we paddled with this group on some weekends, but we brought this whole crew together only really once.
And how many people went eventually?
There was 12 people total. We had 2 crews, and we did in-water changes the whole way across, which can be kind of unnerving for some
people.
Is
6 people in an outrigger the normal?
Yes, for a 6-person canoe. Yep.
Okay.
There we are heading out to the on our way out of the shipping channel. Skyway in the background.
Now, I thought you said you started from...
No, this is a practice.
These are practice.
Shots. Yeah.
It's really beautiful, isn't it?
This is, we're starting actually there. That's the morning. We are heading out from Key Largo at the crack of dawn. We left in the dark to try to make maximum use of the, because we had no navigational lights on there.
Okay, this is a question I've had since reading lots of these stories. How do you see if it's, I mean, you often leave like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning and it's dark. So how do you find your way? I mean, it's dark out there.
We usually, in this case, we just had a compass heading, and it didn't really matter where we were going as long as we stayed on the compass heading because we had...
But can you see things ahead of you? Do you know if there's debris in the water?
Well, we didn't care about debris. If we saw another vessel, it would be lit. So
okay.
we had lights.
Are you lit? Do you have running lights? Or
no, we're not. So this is quite illegal, okay? What you're doing here.
Now, wait a second. Why would you go out in the dark without any light?
Because the sun was going to come up eventually. Right? Does that every day.
And you don't think that the people that would originally have done that years
they didn't have any lights either.
Don't you think they had torches or something?
I don't know.
See, this is my point. Sometimes those people are a lot smarter than we are.
Well, what they would have done is they would have just looked at the stars. You know, they would have known what the stars were, and they would have just followed the stars. So, and there was no freighters out there to hit them.
Were there stars out when?
Yeah, there were
this
stars
looks
out.
cloudy.
There were stars out. Yeah, no, this is just a funky kind of photo.
I see.
Okay, that's when we do the in-water changes. What happens is a couple of guys roll out of the boat, and you stick your arm up and hope that the chase boat sees you and picks you up because you're floating in the open ocean there.
So you actually get into the water.
Yeah, and which is kind of unnerving for some people if they don't like the water, because you're out there and it's like deep, thousands of feet deep, and see shadows and stuff. You look down and wonder what they are. So,
is this water have sharks?
Sharks everywhere. There's sharks everywhere. So, but there's usually a couple of you there, so it reduces your shark attack chances by at least 50 to 33%.
So, I mean, this is an incredible photograph. It looks like it's very cloudy. Was there
it started
issues
to get
of
yes,
raining?
Yes, it got the weather did turn on us quite predictably. Usually, anytime I'm involved in a trip, the weather does go bad.
Yeah, I've read a lot about it. And it looks the way there's this valley.
That's just a wide-angle lens.
Oh, I see. So we aren't having waves? Or
Oh, there's waves, yeah.
How big?
You'll see. I think there's more pictures.
Okay.
They got 4 or 6 feet maybe. That's jumping out of the boat. We had a photographer in the water who got out to shoot some underwater photos.
Oh, so this is voluntarily getting out.
Yeah, well, we're about to do a change.
I think.
We're about
I
to do a
thought
change.
you were being
No, that's later. Okay, now as you can see, the weather's starting to turn because that's the middle of the day. And as you look behind you, the top part of the screen, that's a black storm cloud. And the water is starting to get rough.
So can you name these people?
I don't know. I don't know who's who in here. They barely see their faces. But the same group of guys, yeah. Oh, yeah, Ray Silbert's in there. That's her, yeah.
Huh.
So.
Are you in this, Terry?
I think I'm in is that me in the back there? Yeah, that's the other group. Okay, we had 2 different crews. I was with George, who was steering when we tipped over. You brought it up, not me.
So, where are you now? Are you close to the Gulf Stream?
We're probably in the middle of the Gulf Stream, maybe 30 miles from land.
You're in the middle of it now.
Yeah, 30 miles from land, out in the middle of nowhere.
So what?
And then we switched crews right after this because there's another picture that's I don't know if you put it in here. That picture. Okay, that's where we switched crews. Now the weather is getting really bad.
Yes, I can see
right
that.
There.
It's a good photograph, though.
Yes, these are very bad storm clouds.
Was there lightning?
Yes, and the waves got very big.
And you're in the water.
Yes, we were in the water, and George was steering.
So, okay.
Shortly after this picture was taken, I'll just cut to the chase. We tipped over, and some guys got trapped underneath the canoe. And
really?
It was kind of. Yeah, it was kind of.
Oh, you got trapped, didn't you?
No, I was. That was a different story. That's another perilous adventure.
Right.
No, this one was we tipped over, and we had people kind of climb out, and one guy freaked out. That guy from Tallahassee, had to slap him across the face. Get a hold of yourself, man.
It's frightening, isn't it? And
I thought it was fun. To tell you the truth.
Were you in the boat at yes, because George was steering.
George was driving.
So how do you set the outrigger?
Oh, that's a big challenge. A big challenge because it's full of water. It's upside down, so you got to get kind of underneath it. You got to get some guys on one side to press down on it while the other guys push up on the other side, and then you get it up and it's half full with water. So you got to bail as you paddle. So it took us about an hour to get the water out of there.
How do you not lose your paddles? Are they tethered to you?
No, that's a big problem, too. You can lose your paddles.
Did you lose your paddles?
No, we didn't lose any of our paddles because we held on to them. If you're in the water, you don't want to be up a creek without a paddle.
Right. And did you have gear in there or food or cameras or phones?
Wet gear, wet food.
But you were able to save all of that?
Well, I mean, what do you mean save?
Was
we kept
it
yes.
tied to the side?
Some of the stuff, yeah. We lost some gear, I'm sure, as always.
So if you're in the Gulf Stream at this point, I take it you can, when you're paddling, you can see where the Gulf Stream...
Not when you're in it.
No, but before, when you're in the water before, can you see when you're going to go
Not really. You can't really see the...
Could you tell the difference in terms, was it harder to paddle?
Yeah, it's pushing you. It's a current,
It's going this way, and you're trying to
going
this way.
You're trying to go this way, and it's trying to go this way, which makes for difficult
Right.
paddling.
Now, I take it the claim of the academics is that the Gulf...
What do they know?
Well, that the current in the Gulf Stream was going too strongly this way for you to transverse
Right.
it.
So if you were trying to go like this and the current's going like this,
Right.
that you'd end up over here and you'd be
So
out in
it
the middle of nowhere.
must have been a little difficult.
Well, you just have to keep going. That's the thing. You just keep going, and if you keep going, you'll make it to where you want to go. You just can't stop, which is kind of like life, right?
Okay. Now the other question is, so the island that you're going to, Bimini, which I have to say I was confused because in a sailboat you have a bimini, right? And I'm thinking, why is this island so...
I think they named
That's what my husband said.
top after the
That's
island.
what my
It
husband
wasn't
said.
vice
I was
versa.
like, bimini. So, okay, so the island's here, right? And you're here, and the current's going this way.
See, we're actually like, that's the island. The current's like this, and we're like over here behind your shoulder.
Oh, so you're having the current help you to get there.
Yeah, we started farther south.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, because if you were going straight across, you'd end up down here.
Yeah, we'd end up someplace where you didn't want to be.
Okay. So you planned it so that the current would actually help you get to your location.
We actually sat down and looked at charts and planned it. Yes. It wasn't like we just didn't get up one day and just like, oh, let's paddle the Bimini. No. We had maps that we studied. I actually talked to researchers with the University of South Florida School of Marine Science, and I got talked about current speeds and looked at satellite imagery and figured out where we'd have to start, and that's how we ended up picking our starting point. I knew that we had to be so far to the southwest to be able to make it, and we hit it right on the nose.
So you planned a lot.
Yes, we planned. There was research that went into it.
Except you forgot the lights.
Well, we intentionally didn't put lights on there because we knew the sun was going to come up.
Right, we got that.
Every day.
Did you do research on that too?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we...
And that's where we ended up at the Bimini Big Game Club.
Yay!
Yeah. And we're pouring champagne on people, and I actually got in trouble for this photograph because it was displaying alcohol in the newspaper.
Oh. So, I mean, was it a big deal to, I mean, the whole claim was that you couldn't do this, right, for years and years and years.
Well, what
so
happened was
it
was a big enough deal that after we wrote the stories, I started getting emails from everybody, and they were asking me questions about it, and they like I was some kind of expert. I was just a guy who
But you did it.
got his buddies together and paddled, across the
But
Gulf Stream.
was it difficult to go across the Gulf Stream, or was this?
I mean, it was hard. Yeah, we were in the boat for hours, and we had to paddle. We're doing a stroke every second, and really working hard. And I mean, it was hard. It was very difficult, and but I think that it showed that it could be done.
Well, to me, that's what's interesting about a lot of what you and your friends have done is that, I mean, they were wonderful in some way, extreme adventures, but yet they have this other component. So here there's this real historical element to it. And that's very intriguing, that you're not just willy-nilly going.
No, we actually, after this prompted me to go back to school and get a master's degree from the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, the Florida Studies program, which is the best professional move I've ever made in my life, going back to school, because it taught me how much I don't know. And, it really was just a great thing. So,
well, it's a wonderful expedition. And here's a sort of similar one.
The dugout from Cedar Key to Tarpon Springs. Okay, this was this once again, George Stovall was involved in this, and he found this this canoe, this old.
So I'm going to go back to the map so you can point out the route.
Okay. Well, this canoe was a single piece of we call it the mahogany log, because it was a big old 100-year-old Honduran canoe, and it really wasn't made for salt water. So George took a skill saw and kind of cut the bow a little bit. And we were going to do it totally indigenous. We were going to, we made a sail. George actually had a sail made. And
we have pictures
built
of it, yeah.
the boom out of bamboo and put a Weeden Island thing on it. And we sat down. It was George, Darry Jackson, and Casey, and I, and we were looking over charts, and we were going to use gourds for water and everything. And George came out of his bedroom in a loincloth, and. And that's where we realized that we didn't want to be that authentic.
I think wasn't it you that drew the line there?
I actually drew the line because I've been sunburned before in places that you don't need to be sunburned, and I knew we were asking for trouble. But we actually started up here someplace, Cedar Key. I think if this is the Withlacoochee River, we probably started up here, right about there, and we paddled down to Tarpon Springs. So it was about 100 miles.
And why did you choose that route? Just because you wanted to go 100 miles? Or?
I think we chose that route because when we paddled the Swanee River, we stopped at Cedar Key. And I think that was it. That might have, or it might just been we looked at a map and said, let's start there.
Okay. So let's go.
To the mahogany log.
Yeah. Okay, so where did you find it?
George, well, this is a really kind of twisted story because I think Dan Harvey got it off a shrimp boat. Am I correct? Yeah, something like that. And it sat around in a warehouse forever. And then George found it.
It was in a shrimp boat?
It was on a shrimp boat, came back from South America, and it was sitting in George's garage. See, what else are you going to do? I mean...
It was probably Pinella Seafood.
Yeah, I mean, you sit around, and, basically what we do is we spend 3 months thinking of something that we want to do, and then we go do it, and then we talk about it for 3 months, and then we're bored. So then we spend 3 months talking about doing something, and we do it, and then we talk about it, how great it was for 3 months. And it's just this cycle that never seems to end. And so this was just one of our, silly ideas. But actually, there was like a scientific premise behind this, because there's a big debate in the academic community about whether or not the Indians of Florida actually use sails on their dugout canoes. And the only evidence of this was a child's toy that was found in a grave in Pine Island. and
Where's Pine Island?
down near Charlotte Harbor. And, I'm of the school of thought that these...
Where's Charlotte Harbor?
Charlotte Harbor's south of us, Boca Grande, that area.
Okay.
Fort Myers.
Near Fort.
Okay.
Oh, where you're
But,
from?
I always think that, like you said before, that the indigenous people, they weren't stupid. They just weren't as technologically advanced as we were. So, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you stand up in a canoe on a windy day and you stick your arms out, you're going to go forward. So somebody had to figure out, hey, let's build a sail,
So is this practice or is this...
No, this is actually starting out. We're just leaving Cedar Key here.
And this is what I love. It looks so easy and so calm. And here are their clean white
Did you
T-shirts.
notice the matching shirts? They're actually matching rash guards with the design. Everything matches. Even our,
Well, that makes it.
Okay.
Did you name... Oh, the name of the boat is...
The Mahogany Log.
The Mahogany Log. Okay. So
but
here they are, bailing.
It took on water. That was one of the things that we kind of figured. So
well,
we did
here's
bring a bucket.
why. I mean, you're like in the water.
Yeah.
I don't understand this. Why are you so...
Because there's waves. And there's...
I mean, it's like 3 inches out of the...
Is that my cell phone going off? I can't believe that. How embarrassing. Okay, go to the next picture and you'll see us tipping over. Oh, well, not quite. But you could see that it was very...
You are like in the water.
We paddled with the wooden paddles, and, we tried to do as authentic as possible. But once you got fully loaded...
Are you all wet?
Yeah, we were wet. We usually travel with wet clothes and dry clothes that we put on it.
What's this? This?
That's a Weeden Island symbol of a piece of pottery, and it's actually on the sail that you'll see later. There it is.
There it is.
And once again,
and
we're
you're tipping
over.
Aren't you?
Yes.
Is George steering?
Actually, Gary Jackson is steering in that one, so he can't blame George for that.
So you're really going over here.
Yeah.
Who's taking the? Oh, you've got a boat following.
A boat, yes, taking pictures.
Uh huh. Yeah. Why is someone standing up? Because they're trying to right the boat.
Yeah, yes, that's George sans the loincloth.
So when you go over in this boat, when you tip, this is fairly easy to right?
I mean, what's easy?
Well, easier than the outrigger.
Than the outrigger canoe, yes, because the outrigger canoe was 40-something feet long.
And it has that.
And this is half the size, yeah. But this thing weighed a ton. We had it weighed like hundreds of pounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it wasn't very easy to move.
And was it beautiful, the way it was carved?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it's a wooden canoe. You can go paddle it. It's sitting behind George's house right now.
Okay, so the sail.
Phyllis from Weeden Island painted that on it. We can both do our things at the same time.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so what about the design?
That's an indigenous. Came off a real piece of pottery.
Why this design of the sail?
Oh, that's
How did you figure
Latin
that out?
rig, which is the most ancient of all sailing rigs. You see them on the Nile. It's the simplest. So if they were going to make a sailing rig, it probably would have looked like that.
And how is it attached? Do you have a mast?
That's bamboo, yeah. A mast and boom made of bamboo. George cut down from his neighbor's yard. And that's a kind of a iconic picture there of the canoe, the ancient canoe going in front of the power plant.
Mm.
And that's us pulling into Tarpon Springs. Well, call them normal. They were quite freaked out by the whole spectacle.
Just imagine if you had your loincloths on.
Next time.
Okay, so this is Fort DeSoto?
No, that is a park in Tarpon Springs.
Oh, right. You went to Tarpon Springs. So this was the end.
Is my mic still working?
This is the end.
The end. That's the end, yes. And we never paddled it again. Do that.
And how many days did it take you?
Oh, it took 3 days. And there's all sorts of complications. I had some dental issues.
Yes, I know. I read about that.
They tried to pull my tooth and, friends.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think maybe that's why your wife works at a hospital.
Give them a lot of business.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, now let's just go through these because these were.
I'm sure we're running out of time,
We
aren't
are,
we? Yeah.
and these are just
And aren't
images.
they supposed to ask questions?
Yes,
let's,
they will.
Let's take as long as possible so people can ask questions.
These are just interesting photographs, so we don't really have to talk much about them.
I'll just tell you where they are. That's camping on the Apalachicola River where we started out. It was 74 degrees, and it got down to 24 degrees that night.
You people look very cold.
We are very cold. Yeah. That's the next morning when our hands were literally frozen to our paddles, and we had to put on, once again, frozen wetsuit pants. And there's Dr. Stovall doing what he does best, paddle. We figured out at some point to bring sails when we on our kayaks.
So you all are there? There's 4 kayaks, and you each have fire.
That's an island, and Casey, the Eagle Scout, is in charge of making fires.
It's a good fire.
And very
I
often
love this
we
photograph.
are often lost. On our, I mean, we weren't. I mean, we knew we're on the Indian River Lagoon on the east coast of Florida, but for all practical purposes, we were lost.
And this is the last one. I think it's lovely. These are not the sit-upon kayaks. These are
those are real expensive, fast kayaks that you buy at Bill Jackson Shop for Adventure in US 19 in Pinellas Park.
So how did this photograph get taken?
Doug Clifford, who travels with us a lot and does a lot of our photography, climbed up on a bridge, and as we went underneath.
Oh, I see. It's a bridge.
He was
from
chasing
a
us.
bridge.
Yeah.
Well, fascinating. I just think that looking at all of this and talking to you, you've taken this sort of sport of paddling, and I know there's many other things, but this especially, and you've really made it a rich endeavor through all the history, the innovation, and putting together a team of very smart people and people willing to take a lot of risks and discovering a lot about our town, our place, that most people wouldn't be able to discover. And so you do such a service to us in terms of allowing us to see where we live in a way that most of us wouldn't do.
Well, I look at it this way. I think like every day is an adventure. I mean, I go to Publix supermarket with my kids, and it's an adventure, and that's the way you have to look at it because there's so much to do here. There's, I mean, there's no, you can, I have 80 adventures in the book, and I can have another, 80 like that. I mean, there's no shortage. And here in St. Petersburg, you have the parks, you have Brooker Creek, Sawgrass Lake, you've got Fort DeSoto, Lake McGorry, so many different places that you can, Boyd Hill, and
Boyd Hill.
it's just amazing. So it's just you have North Shore Park. I mean, you could. Where else in the world can you go in the morning and see people paddling, running, doing boot camp exercises, skateboarding, bicycling? I mean, all there in that one little area on any morning. This is just such a rich place to live. And if you're not out there enjoying it, leave town. Come on. I mean,
go to Tampa.
Yeah, go to Tampa. They don't have any of that stuff over in Tampa.
So anyway, if you're interested in going on adventures on your own or with a group of friends, Terry's book, and today, the Dali, you can buy it in their bookstore, and it's 15% off just for today for this special event. So now people can ask questions. So
none of my friends. Don't let.
Yes. Will you stand up and say your name? Yeah.
I once took a sailboat to the dry tortugas, and we got hit with some really bad weather, and the captain wasn't very competent, and it wasn't me, and we wasn't George either, but the boat literally started to fall apart, started to sink, and I can remember having to, I had to tie a rope around my waist and go over the backside of the boat in the storm and fix a propeller that had gotten entangled with the rope. And I can remember going into the water and thinking to myself that there's probably a 50-50 chance that I was going to be able to do it and that I might come out okay. And I remember feeling this real feeling of serenity and knowing that as I was going into the water that if anybody was going to do it in that situation, that it should be me. And that, I think that, I tell my kids this all the time. I used to think that attitude is everything. But now, after doing this kind of stuff for 25 years, I realize that attitude is the only thing. That if you have a good attitude, you can go and you can accomplish whatever you want. And that was a big turning point for me because after that, I was able to do, a lot more ambitious things.
How old were you then?
I was probably 32, 33,
Yes, could you stand up and say your name, please?
Hi. Because there's just, why we changed crews? Because we were going at such a fast pace, there was just no way that, I think if the Indians did it, they would have had a bigger boat, and they would have had people staying in the canoe as they paddled, and some guys would paddle and some guys would rest. But we didn't have that option the way the boat was built. So there was no way that we could have kept up the pace. We were, how many strokes per minute, George? 85 strokes per minute.
85 per minute?
And we would do this for an hour. Wow. So we were literally like this constantly.
So excuse me.
Yeah, they were resting, so we changed off, and that's how they do races in Hawaii.
And what would you do in the rest boat? Would you sleep,
drink beer?
No.
No, I'm only kidding. We wouldn't do that.
No, yeah. that would be dangerous. Yeah. You can drink beer when you arrive.
Right. Yeah.
So, did you take naps or?
Yeah, took naps. Next question.
I am not asking anything else. Yes, ma'am. Could you stand up and say your name?
Yeah, you have to. There's more to it than there's more to it than just the you got to prepare for it for sure. So.
You have to have something to back up the attitude. Yes.
Yes. In fact, I went on a Jersey Devil hunt once when I was a kid.
Did you?
Yes, and I've also.
They're so beautiful, the Pine Barrens.
Oh, I thought you meant the Jersey Devil. I never actually found the Jersey Devil, but I spent a lot of time in the Pine Barrens when I was a kid. Just what I read in the, not personally. Ah, okay. I'll have to use that with the swamp ape story with my Boy Scouts next time I go on a...
Those of you who don't know New Jersey, the Pine Barrens are in the southern part of the state, and you think of Jersey as like the turnpike, but it's this big forest of pines, and it's just gorgeous, and it goes on forever. When you take the back road from the shore.
I think if you grow up in New Jersey, though, it's you try to get out of there as quickly as possible.
I just really like it. Okay, who else has a question? Yes, ma'am, in the back.
It's a new at Heritage Village out at off of Walsingham. It's a new museum and sort of a cultural center dedicated to Gulf Coast fishing. And their biggest thing that they're doing is developing fishing programs in all the schools. They have thousands of kids signed up already. And the University of South Florida's St. Petersburg, Florida Studies program is working. Students are working to produce exhibits for it. It's be a great place for fishermen or people who love and want to learn about fishing to go, because there's really nothing like that. So,
Thank you for asking that question. Yes. Hi.
No, I mean, I'm familiar with Marine Lab, but I mean, I've spent time down there, but I've not actually. I mean, I was in with the state's researchers when they did there's a marine lab, not the marine lab that you're talking about, but the Aquarius, which is a laboratory that they sunk in 80 feet of water that I spent some time in. Now you got to scuba dive down to it, so. I do love the water. I love the ocean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Huff.
I'm with you on that. I think this pier idea they got, I mean, I could have done it, could have paid me $1 million, right, and I would have told them what to do, no problem. I mean, they could easily build something that you could once again have a great urban fishery in St. Petersburg, but it's not designed like that. You know, I mean, even if they rebuilt the old $1 million pier and had docks and artificial reefs built off it, but I don't know what they're thinking, you know. So it's your tax dollars. Hopefully they'll put it up for a vote, and we can all vote it down. I haven't signed any petitions. I don't sign anything. My wife signs everything.
Could you stand up and say who you are?
Bill Huff, and I have a question. Are you going to go to Havana, Cuba, and prove that there's commerce between Key West?
Yes, we're working on that right now. We're trying to put together an expedition through the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg's Florida Studies program. We're going to use the Dr. Stovall sailing canoe, and we want to start in Key West and
what
go.
Do you mean, the mahogany log?
No. Not the mahogany log. No.
What's sailing?
We have another canoe. George has a George.
How
George
many
has.
canoes do you have, George?
It's a sore spot. His wife's here. George has lots of paddlecraft, but he has a true Hawaiian outrigger sailing canoe that's very fast that we once tried to take to the Keys. It's another story. We are going to take that from Key West to Cuba, hopefully next year or the year after we get the proper permits.
That is a dangerous crossing, isn't it?
I mean, what's dangerous? You could
I know.
go down the
What's
street and get hit
dangerous?
by a bus, you know?
Right.
There's Russian space junk falling out of the sky every day, you know?
So when is this expedition
Well,
planned?
we hope to maybe 2013 or 2014. It's going to get the proper permits
And you have to sit around
funding.
and talk about
Got
it.
to sit around and talk about it in our loincloths for a while. And look at some maps, figure out where to go.
We have time for one more question. Who wants to ask it? Yes.
In Florida, if I could go anywhere in the world, I think I'd like to, if I could take a dream trip right now, I'd go to Africa, because my little boy is going to he's going to build a game preserve there, and we have to kind of scout out where it's going to be. Because once he opens up the game preserve, he said he's going to give me a job, and then I'm going to be able to work there. So
Now, Africa is really big. Where do you think in Africa?
he pretty much wants the whole place to himself. So Africa's next on our list. So. But I'm honestly, I mean, there's so much of Florida that I want to see, and there's so many state parks, and I am constantly, taking my kids during Christmas break. I think I took my son and daughter and friends. We visited 4 different parks on camping trips. So every time they get a day off and there's not some commitment, is I try to take them on a trip somewhere, or we do family trips, to different places around the state. I mean, I could spend the next 20 years and not see everything in Florida. The big thing that I'm gonna do is next I want to swim from Italy to Sicily, and then Joe Lane's going with me, and then we're gonna go and swim the Hellespont between Europe and Asia.
Oh.
But that's my personal, if I can do anything, in the next couple of years, that's what I want to do.
Well, thank you all for coming, and I hope that you come back in the last Thursday of June for Margaret Sullivan, who is the Chancellor of USF St. Pete, and that should be a very interesting conversation about how universities help to shape a town and how the particular universities here help to shape St. Petersburg. So let's thank Terry Tomalin. What a great guy.
Thank you. We're right on time, too.
Right on time. So thank you very much.